Oh boy, this is gonna be a long walk. Stupid symbolism. It's Easter Sunday, probably somewhere between 4 and 4:15 a.m. On the eastern horizon, the sun is just threatening to illuminate the city. A man hiding under the bleachers once again pokes his eye up to a little gap through the backstop, where he can make out just enough of the field to know what's going on. But he has no idea what will happen next. Who could? Two children currently lie asleep, one under her mother's legs in the stands, the other in his father's car in the almost empty parking lot. A few players on the hitting team sit in the dugout and attempt to warm their hands on the fire they have, kindled mostly now by broken pieces of their own wooden bats that they're burning to keep warm. A man who came to the ballpark with his girlfriend bends over with his head 18 inches into a trash can. He won't leave. No one will. Why is this happening? Why won't anyone go home? Hope is the best answer you could give in a word. The count is 1-1, with runners on first and second hoping to end this game. Everyone is hoping they end this game. It's the 30-something inning. The scoreboard lost the ability to keep up a while ago, yesterday actually, so I'm not positive. The man hiding under the stands sees the third baseman gracefully lay down on the ground and use that last footbag before home plate as his pillow. The umpire, relentless in his devotion to this beautiful game, would not end it if God himself told him to, and God is busy today with his kid anyways. Somewhere in the stadium, or close enough to hear it, a bird sings. And still, just like he has so many times tonight, all that man under the bleachers can think is, God damn it, can this goddamn wind stop blowing the infield dirt into my goddamn peeping hole? It is stinging the goddamn hell out of my eye. I'm Hayden, and this is the longest baseball game ever. In a city that looks like it's called Pawtucket, that'll be the first thing that sets off alarm bells in the heads of locals. Pawtucket is the city's name. If you say it right, it sounds like you're spitting chewing tobacco. Maybe Redman, Levi Garrett, dealer's choice. In the smallest state in the Union, they don't have a single major professional sports team to back up their claims of mightiness. What tiny branch they can grab is that of a minor league baseball team, AAA, just one level below the big show. But the distance between these levels, a void of somedays, almosts, and has-beens, feels infinite to most down in Pawtucket. It's not infinite. It can be measured. About 45 miles separate these ballplayers from the major league glory they all desperately seek up north and a little east in Boston. The Red Sox are in the third act of an 85-year championship drought, but that means little to any minor leaguer solely and selfishly focused on himself, on this one game, on this one at-bat, on this pitch. It's the way you have to be. After all, one pitch can change your entire baseball career. It can spark it and ignite a fire that burns for decades, a fact some of these guys will learn firsthand. It can also end it. A fact much more of them will become accustomed to.
It's a Paw Sox Saturday nights on MyRI TV. Catch your Pawtucket Red Sox in action Saturday, June 17th at 6 as they take on the Rochester Red Wings. You can find MyRI TV on these local cable channels.
On April night in 1981, a temperature hovering just above freezing and a consistent march of wind that takes at least 15 degrees off that. It'll only blow harder as the night goes on. Fans pack into Old McCoy Stadium, a diamond-shaped bucket of prayers with foundation hammered into a swampy piece of land. Some say the ballpark is still shifting in its 39th year standing. There's just over 1,700 here tonight, less than a third of the place's capacity. People know what they're paying for. This isn't the Opera, and everyone sure as hell knows this isn't the Boston Red Sox. This is a community doing its best to support what it does have. Much of these 1,700 people here tonight couldn't name more than one guy on the team. But they're here. It's a cold-ass day. The wind is blowing in their face. They're in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. And they're here. If for no other reason They're here to inspire ball players with widely varying levels of confidence and hope to stick at it, encouraging scarecrows. Keep trying. Maybe one day you'll get to Boston, and who knows, maybe one day we'll even learn your name. And all these desires are equally shared by everyone on the other side, too. If you just replace the Boston Red Sox with their parent team, the Baltimore Orioles. A whole nother group of guys, also just one stop away from the big leagues, waiting for the one moment, the one pitch that could get them there. Equal opportunity. So here we are, just before 8 p.m. on Holy Saturday, with the Pawtucket Red Sox scheduled to take on the Rochester Red Wings. The final touches of the field, seen as a ritual just as dear to heart as tomorrow morning's mass to those who perform them, are carried out. The mound groomed to perfection, foul lines sharp and straight, Lena Blackbird rubbing mud, caressing the baseballs. But the game doesn't start. Everyone knows why. You can see why. There's an entire light tower not turning on back there behind the outfield. The PA announcer confirms everyone's eyesight, and the scoreboard tests it again. This baseball game may not take place because of, wait for it, the night. Will it prevail over two teams of ball players, hungry, starving, mouth-watering, to be noticed by someone? After 10 or 15 minutes of no lights, a few people try to predict the future and walk out to their cars and drive home for the night to sleep in their warm bed and wake up on Easter morning peacefully. Pity a fool. The game does begin, the delay totaling about half an hour, but come 8:25 p.m., the first pitch is thrown. Late start. Whew. With two motions of his mouth, the umpire christens this ballgame the very same way each one has begun for over 50 years, though the origins of the now cultural staple phrase are debated. With these two words, he's giving the all-clear to Danny Parks, Pawtucket's starting righty who boasts an awesome sinker ball but seems to have a knack for losing games by just one run. Those little words will also be putting Tom Eaton on notice. The moment he steps both feet into that white box, he's a sitting duck, nothing to do but wait for a baseball to be hurled in his general direction. So the umpire unmutes and lets this small slice of Rhode Island in on the fun. Play ball. Danny Parks is 26 years old. He has a wife. He's a devout Christian to the point where he's starting to question if his faith is negatively affecting his career. The Red Wings manager will soon tell him that his religion is becoming a distraction for the team. He'll ask him to leave Jesus off the diamond. Parks will respond that Jesus lives with him in his heart and that he can't go anywhere without him. His manager will sigh and answer, well, Jesus ain't going to Boston. He winds up to unleash his first pitch, his knee rising waist high, then kicking with the force of a curb stomp. Tom Eaton is 26 years old as well. He's gripping a Louisville Slugger with his hands and a mouthful of chewing tobacco on the right side of his cheek. It's his first year in AAA. Tom is a realistic and intelligent person. He knows the role he's performing. He knows the Orioles don't see him as any sort of superstar of the future, that he's more just a good guy they're gonna let play until they get a younger, better, younger prospect. He also feels the way a lot of his teammates look at him. The minor leagues seem to be split into two distinct groups of men, without much of the in-between that seems like it would be natural. You're either too young, not mature, or experienced enough for the major leagues, or you're Tom Eaton, 26 years old, not a boy anymore, not even a man, an ancient man in terms of baseball prospects. You're a gust of wind away from falling in the shower. Your teammates, particularly the younger ones, look at you with this wandering confusion, the same one you gazed at veterans with when you were 21. Why is this old guy still here? Give it up, man. Give your spot up to a better baseball player with more potential. Did I mention they'd be younger? Tom Eaton and Danny Parks are both snugly in the senior category. They can feel by the day, by the ball game, their window quickly closing. Just one shot. That's all they're asking for. Eaton takes the first pitch for a strike. He watches the windup for the second time, unable to discern any difference that might tip him off to what pitch is coming, and waits. He watches the ball, keeping his eye as has been pounded in his brain since T-ball locked on to the incoming missile. When he decides it's not his pitch, he won't swing, he still keeps his eye on the ball, as if to ensure to himself that he made the right decision. Before he can confirm, a sharp pain strikes, maintains itself, then shoots up through his right foot. He's been hit by the pitch. The umpire directs him to take his base. A leadoff hitter doing what a leadoff does. Tom Eaton will never take an at-bat in Major League Baseball, not for the Orioles or any other team. This will be his last year in the minors. He'll become another tick in a long tally of almosts. He'll get a job, start a family, and slip into anonymity, just like the rest of us. The only difference is that we almost knew Tom Eaton's name. Danny Parks will never throw a pitch in Major League Baseball, not for the Red Sox or any other team. Decades after the game has moved on and left him behind, his faith will still be there, never wavering. One day, long after tonight, you'll be able to call this plate matchup a has-been versus a has-been. But not tonight. Not right now. Right now, it's two guys, each convinced they're one play away from changing their life forever on a field full of people thinking the very same thing in a town that sounds like you're spitting when you say its name correctly. Right now, all Tom Eaton cares about is walking to first base and not letting on even a little bit to his manager that his right foot feels like it just took a bullet. And so, here we are. All that, those dreams and aspirations of two minor league baseball players who never will fulfill them, just brings us here. To the top of the first, with one on, no out. Dallas Williams is hitting second. He steps up to the plate and flies out to left field. That's alright, plenty of game to go for him, at least a couple more at-bats to be had. 7 years from today, Dallas Williams will have his own quaint temporary housing unit. It'll be over 6,000 miles away from Pawtucket in Japan. As he celebrates his 30th birthday, he will reflect. He's reached the forbidden age and still is chasing a pipe dream. He actually made the big leagues for a second, but after less than 50 plate appearances over a few years, he would never make it back. What's next? He's playing professional baseball in Japan. Do you keep going with little hope? Do you quit and turn your back on the only thing you've devoted your life to for the past 15 years, now half your living days? Do you say screw it and try to make a life of your own here in Japan? Dallas Williams has to make this decision, but not right now. Right now, all Dallas has to do, all Dallas can do, is walk back to the dugout and try to make his next at-bat a little better. It won't be better. Dallas Williams will go an astonishing, typo-sounding 0 for 13 on hitting in this baseball game. So is the way, right? So is the life of Rochester's three-hole third baseman, now stepping up to home plate. And God, isn't everyone in this organization just praying this kid works out? If all goes well, you're looking at your Baltimore Orioles third bagman of the future. Sure, there's the nepotism whispers, his dad is an Orioles staff member, but this kid's play is silencing anyone who speaks up. He's not just obsessed with baseball, he refers to it as his existence. He carries himself with an authority that he already knows he will be a big league regular. Doesn't seem to share the same fear, the hesitancy in every decision that it could be the one that does you in or screws you out. If all goes well, man, I know it seems like it never does down here, but this kid, this Cal Ripken Jr., he could be something. Right now, though, he just grounds out. The slightest of shifts from promise towards doubt takes place in the universe. A strikeout ends the top of the first. No radio station carries the Pawtucket Red Sox games, meaning they have no play-by-play announcer. The reason behind this, fascinatingly enough, is that basically no one cares. Luckily, Rochester does carry a team, and their two-man booth has made the trip today to this unforgiving game. They, in the press box, along with a few other men up there, a couple reporters, a scoreboard operator, and a scorekeeper, will be the only recorders of this baseball game. A few thousand people to start will listen along back in Rochester as a man aptly named Bob, because he's a baseball announcer in the 80s, does his best to Sherpa 8 hours of tedious, hard-to-watch history. Bob attempts to describe the weather now, but the numbers of it come up short in conveying just how goddamn cold it feels. It's easier to show you. A few dozen feet down and to the right in the Rochester dugout, a pitcher named Steve Luber sits. He's freezing. He gets up and walks around the stadium. Minor league baseball is pretty lax. Steve has already played in the majors, and he'll be back to play again later this very season. He's worked his way through the void and gotten to the other side. But the worst part of it, Steve knows, is that for how far apart AAA feels from the majors when you're down here, sitting in a cold Pawtucket dugout, once you do finally get up there, the distance suddenly shrinks, and you feel like you're only a step from going right back down. Steve Luber knows all about being just so close. Just outside the stadium, separated from the real world by only a couple barriers, is the city of Pawtucket. Not very well known nationwide, but if you had heard of the place before, it's likely for one reason. 2 years ago, the Rhode Island city shot and killed a polar bear named Frosty. It's not a huge thing. Some kids had this great idea to cut the lock to its cage and let it run free, so the SWAT team shot it. It became a national news story. So yeah, that's the reputation we're working with here. But right now, it's a group of young kids running around uncaged instead, watching, admiring. These people really get paid to play baseball, and that's it? That's their job? That's awesome. Right now, these boys feel just as separated from this baseball game as these players do from Boston and Baltimore. Perspective, right? Now, the kids are looking for memorabilia, something that was touched, maybe even used by one of those professional baseball players, because isn't that so cool? And Steve Luber has a proposal for them. He'll give them some nice pro league baseballs in exchange for any wood they can find. Simple enough request, maybe a bit weird, but are these kids going to question their newest baseball dealer? A few minutes later, twigs, branches, and a piece of a white picket fence are being walked back to the dugout. Let's not ask any questions about that. The deal is done, after all. The kids take some baseballs and run along. Within a couple more minutes, Steve Luber and teammates are warming themselves by a fire, burning in a metal trash can, being fueled by whatever the hell those kids just brought him, some crumpled up papers, and a couple broken bats. The game is in the first inning. The night is taking control. And about that baseball game, already slipping from the jaws of importance, the pitchers take control. The scorekeeper, forever jotting away up in that monotonous press booth, records 3 up, 3 down a few times over. Pawtucket gets a man to third, no outs, followed by 2 strikeouts and a groundout. But in the latter half of the fourth, with maybe 1,500 people in the stands, because we are losing a couple dozen after every inning, Chico Walker takes everyone's frustration with the cold weather and fuses them into a hateful pummeling of a baseball. It carries, the type of hit you know is leaving the yard as soon as the bat redirects it. And I mean, come on, look who's hitting. Pawtucket's most popular player doesn't plan on being a fan favorite here for long. Boston likes him okay, a few other major league clubs like him more than that. He got a hefty opportunity just last year when he got over 50 plate appearances in 19 games. That doesn't mean he played outstanding, as you can surmise by his being here, but he showed promise, and none of that promise is more applicable to right now. But in just his third at-bat in the big leagues, Chico pounded a home run to deep right. That's the one he's remembering right now, not his average or some other new sabermetric stat, as he trots the bases in Pawtucket, waiting for a call back up to Boston, and waiting for this ball to sail over an outfield fence. But while in the air, something happens. It could have just been wind, a natural occurrence, not much more to say. Or it could have been the night, toying with us, giving us a hint of what was to come. That ball stops, maybe pushed back some, who knows, and it's caught at the warning track. A pop fly and nothing more, though the scorekeeper does eternally note in his book that it was a 370-foot plus hit, taken away by the night. As the game whittles down, we're left with around 1,000 people flat in the stadium and another 1,000 or so listening to Bob and his co-host mutter the same eminent baseball catchphrases. Ground ball to third, throw is well in time. Pop fly to center, and Dallas Williams will walk under it. A long night of nothing so far, scoreless in the 7th when a push is finally made. 2 walks and a single bring us the closest to opportunity we've come yet. The ball bounces to Chico Walker in left field, who makes a beautiful throw to home plate, the type of missile that gets Boston's attention. With a runner well on his way, Chico's throw pounds into the catcher's mitt. Just a moment too late. Rochester takes a 1-0 lead. The umpire, who made the safe call, is a man who, just like everyone else playing today, wants to be in the major leagues. He wouldn't be freezing his ass off here if the world spun his way. But he knows all about paying your dues. He thinks he made the right call. The home fans, the few invested enough to vocalize their thoughts, may disagree with him. That's okay. Whoever liked an umpire. Right now, in the stands, a boy sits alone. He's the nephew of that umpire. Because we all have our own lives going on, the umpire does too. He just moved into a new home with his wife and had his brother and nephew helping them move some boxes. He decided, hey buddy, why not come watch me ump tonight at the game? What's the worst that could happen? He'd actually never been to a baseball game before. It could be fun. So that boy sits up there and watches, a little confused, a little cold, but trying to enjoy. Elsewhere, in these very confines of McCoy Stadium, as the city and time zone all transition into slumber, an entirely different game is being played. In the Pawtucket clubhouse, their team manager, a boy nicknamed Hood, races against the clock, the baseball game, and the night. It's the post-game meal he is delicately crafting, a chicken pasta packed with carbs and protein alongside a comically large bowl of salad and plenty of beers to go around. Only one of these items will be used to its fullest extent. While the chicken has been slow cooking, he likes to start the pasta here in the 7th or 8th inning, precisely timed out to be hot and ready off the stove for the players as the game comes to a close. It's getting late. The city is entering its hours of quiet and dark, people turning off porch lights and getting ready for Easter tomorrow. The streets nearly empty. Downtown is quiet. The birds sleep. But the blinding emission and auditory glow of a half-dozen stadium light fixtures rudely interrupts the nightly enigma. The top of the 9th inning sputters out to bring us to what could be the final intermission of the night. Pawtucket has just 3 more outs to lean on. Of course, there's no suspense to build here. You saw the thumbnail. You know this game is far from over. You know they score 1 run, no more, no fewer, because that's how it has to be. It's a necessary plot point to continue the story. You just don't know how it happens. You don't know that Chico Walker, by far the most present figure of these first 9 innings, hit a leadoff double to keep this thing interesting. Larry Jones is pitching, still. He started this ball game too, and he's just 3 outs away from a complete game shutout. Larry Jones, nicknamed Jonesy, is here because he saw a mountain and started climbing it. This is a guy who, within the last 4 years, has played rookie ball, single A, double A, triple A, double A again, and now he's back in triple. He's a great pitcher, just not quite great enough. Not yet, at least. He's also tossed a great game tonight, just not great enough. It never is. His manager, a man who, get this, wants to manage in the big leagues someday, skips out to the mound for a chat. He wants to make sure Jonesy can put this thing away comfortably. The last thing he needs is to spend more time than necessary on this cold swamp carpet of a baseball field. So he leaves Jonesy out there. For some departing words of wisdom, his manager tells him, the only thing that can hurt us is if you screw up somehow. He pivots and walks back to the dugout. The very next pitch, Jonesy bounces a curveball behind the catcher, the batter, and the umpire. Chico walkers, or I guess probably joggers, his way on over to third base comfortably. Jonesy is not pulled from the game. Russ Larrabee, the cleanup hitter, steps up to bat. Remember Dallas Williams, the guy who's in midst of going 0 for 13 tonight? Well, Russ is having a similar type of game. In fact, for decades after, fans of the sport will point and laugh at Russ Larrabee's stat line much more than they will Dallas Williams. The reason why is going to require you to open up your books of weird baseball vernacular to page 11. Yeah, here we are. The Golden Sombrero, the infamous, inglorious achievement of striking out 4 times in a single game. A lot of the time, you don't even get 4 at-bats in a game, so this is a worthy marking point of a rough night. Now, 5 strikeouts in a game moves you up to the Platinum Sombrero. This is also colloquially referred to as the Olympic rings. Anything much higher than here becomes pretty uncharted territory. Things get real fun at the Titanium Sombrero. This 6 strikeout feat has only happened 8 total times in MLB history. The name didn't even exist until 1991, 10 years after this game would end. And Russ Larrabee did not stop there. He struck out 7 times tonight. 0 for 11 with 7 Ks, more than any MLB player ever has. We don't even really have a name for this feat, because what madman would have thought to create one? So this is the way we remember Russ Larrabee. 7 strikeouts in one game. Here's what we don't remember Russ for. No outs, man still on third, bottom of the ninth. Russ steps into the box. He hits a pop fly that is caught and logs his at-bat as an out. Just one of the 11. What's rarely remembered is that after the ball was caught, Chico Walker tagged up and sprinted through home plate to tie the game. The man who set the single game strikeout record tonight just tied this baseball game up and is the reason that it will continue. His very own necessary plot point. And somehow, even less remembered than his game-saving sac fly RBI, is the rest of his life. 3 months later, he quit baseball. He'd play one more year in Italy, where he was hailed as the Babe Ruth of Netino, but he never got his shot in the big show. Before you know it, you're getting a knock on your door, and standing there, bright smile on his face, is Russ Larrabee, door-to-door salesman of Electrolux vacuums. He'll give you his sales pitch, you'll politely decline and feel just a little bad as you close the door in his face. He'll move on to the next house, and you'll never know just how close you once were to learning Russ Larrabee's name. Jonesy gets one more out before being pulled after 8 2/3 inning work. Just 1 out away from a whole 9 and 1 run away from a clean sheet. Great game, just not enough. It will never be enough. As Rochester cleans up one last batter to ensure that we will, in fact, get some extra baseball tonight, hundreds reach out their arms and shut off their radios, silencing Bob and his partner and their half-hearted attempts at excitement. Time for bed. In person, hundreds also rise to their feet and begin walking. They're not using the restroom or getting snacks, they are going home. They've seen a whole baseball game that started with a delay, nonetheless, and they're tired. Power to them. But the sport's petty overlords have refused to declare a victor. Fans? Sure, you can go. Listeners, it's a free country. Turn off your radio whenever you want. Coaches, players, umpires have a duty that is still yet to be fulfilled. An unspoken pact with the game that each of them metaphorically signed when they stepped onto this field. There are no ties in baseball. So we play on. In the dugout, the young manager Hood panics and scrambles to elongate the hot temperature of his carefully planned feast. In the press box, Bob straps in for what he thinks could be a long one with the way the wind is blowing. There's no heater up here, or bathroom. Calling it a press box is almost giving it too much credit. Others have described it as a trailer home straddling over the stands on some wires. The two reporters begin to receive frantic calls from their editors, asking for the final score so they can get it included in the next morning's paper. One of their editors will continue these calls no less than every 15 minutes, as if to ensure that the reporter hasn't forgotten of his existence. In the stands, only the devoted remain. A couple hundred now. Some the wives and girlfriends of the players, some the concessionaires and merch booths not planning to sell for much longer. A father and his young son are there. They frequent Pawtucket's games and have previously made a pact to stay until the end no matter what. The young boy is 9 years old, and this baseball team may as well be made up of 9 Babe Ruths in his eyes. They are stars to him. They're not even anything to themselves yet. Perspective can be funny like that. A 19-year-old and his girlfriend are there, though they took separate cars, and she's happily ready to leave her boyfriend here if this thing drags on too much longer. And of course, maybe the only forced to be here but not paid for it is the nephew of the umpire, blissfully unaware of the rules, just hoping extra innings means the game will end soon. In the dugouts, the players wrap themselves in their warm-up jackets and blankets, with Pawtucket having copied Rochester's trash can fire some time ago, meaning both sides are huddled around flame like early man. Although there's no more kids running around to get kindling, because it's almost midnight, so it's pretty much all fueled on broken bats now. The game, having broke confine, begins its wandering journey through the post-ninth inning, wide-open night. The pitcher's duel picks back up. It will continue this way for a while. Jeff Schneider, the man who came in to get the very last out of the game, takes over for Rochester and pitches through the 14th. Luis Aponte, who came in for Pawtucket in the 7th, will stay through the 10th. They will allow a combined 2 hits, strike out a combined 17 batters, and let in no runs. Schneider will pitch a total of 24 innings in Major League Baseball, compared to his 9 years of service for the minors. He feels that the organization undervalues and doesn't really put enough effort into developing him as a player, a common sentiment among minor leaguers, whether fair or not. But even if it wasn't for long, even if he had a 4.8 ERA, he did make it. He's in the baseball encyclopedia, that damned special book that everyone just wants to be eternalized in, even if it's for 24 lackluster innings. That's the land where people set your appointments for you and carry your bags around. He was there. Luis Aponte will have a more than impressive career spanning 4 total seasons. He'll move back home to Venezuela, where he's hailed as a national legend, popular enough to run for president according to teammates. He'll coach kids on how to throw a baseball, and he'll grow fruit that looks like a baseball, mangoes and lemons and such. But not right now. Right now, just a couple people in this quickly emptying stadium know his name. Right now, he's pitching a ball to a hitter named Mark Corey, who will be pulled out of the game in the 14th inning and proceed to get drunk out of his mind in the clubhouse as the night continues. But right now, he just strikes out to a forkball launched out of the claw of a soon-to-be, but not yet, Venezuelan icon. All concessions and merchandising booths have closed up shop now, save for a single snack shack that's still selling coffee. Soon they will begin giving it out for free to anyone willing to stay, and the few in the stadium will collectively kill a frightening amount of hot caffeine. It's the bottom of the 11th inning. The hopeful belief of extra innings is now present, the same one that will permeate the entire night. One swing of the bat can end this. We can all go home. It's fast approaching midnight, the beginning of Easter Day. Dave Koza is ready to bat. He's the favorite player of that 9-year-old boy sitting with his father in the stands. He'll ask God, or anyone up there still awake and listening, for one thing. Can he be the one to end this baseball game? Can he send himself and everyone else home for the night? Can he do it for his loving new wife, Ann Koza, who is currently sitting in the stands shivering under a thin quilt? Who knows what he can do? 3 years before tonight, Dave Koza sat in the Pawtucket locker room. His head was down, his mind distraught. He had just been sent back down to Bristol, another level lower in Double-A. Safe to say, he was questioning a lot of things. Then he heard a voice, not supernatural or godlike, a real talking voice. "Hey kid, what are you hitting?" someone asked. Dave Koza turned around to see Ted Williams standing beside his locker. I take it back. The voice was both supernatural and godlike. When Koza nervously muttered to the baseball deity, "I don't even know my batting average," hellfire rained down on the city they spit to say. Ted Williams exploded, then imploded, then stood there and scream-cussed at tiny little Dave Koza until the boy was reduced to real liquid tears. Then Ted actually got started. "You, a mere mortal, do not speak to the splendid Splinter, the greatest hitter to ever live, if you do not come prepared to speak." But through the tears, embarrassment, the lesson learned, and the tears, Ted Williams had also complimented Koza's swing. When Ted asked for his average, he already knew. He probably knew more about Dave Koza than Dave Koza did, and he liked him as a hitter. And if Dave can take that, a verbal onslaught from one of the greatest to ever breathe air on diamond-shaped dirt, what can't he take? And if Ted f***ing Williams thinks he's a good hitter, what can't he hit? Tonight, Dave is doing his best to prove Ted right, on the microscopic prayer-in-the-wind chance that Ted somehow hears about this game and remembers the kid he made cry 3 years ago. And if he did, he would see that kid had a hell of a baseball game. Koza would see 14 at-bats tonight, a single-game record that still stands, tied with 2 others from this game. And he would also lead both teams in hits with 5. As he sends this baseball flying in the bottom of the 11th inning, he's hoping. His teammates are hoping. The other team probably wouldn't admit it yet, but just in the way back of their minds, might be hoping the game could end. A nice thought. A man named Drungo Hazewood, 6'3", 210, built like a running back, is standing in right field, under the ball, as it flops into his mitt. I'm sorry, a man named what? Drungo was the ninth of 10 children. When his mother, Mrs. Hazewood, was giving birth to him, she made a deal with her kids that whoever ran to the hospital first got to name the baby. One of her sons, one, had a friend named Drungo, so Drungo Hazewood it was. That kid grew into a man and did actually have a college football offer. Makes sense, but the Orioles went and drafted him with their 1977 first-round pick, 19th overall. Drungo was a jaw-dropping baseball player to watch. His only problem was that he could not hit a curveball to save his life. That's why he's down here, just getting ready for up there, honing that breaking ball swing. The Orioles saw Drungo, that third baseman Cal Ripken Jr., and the shortstop next to him, Bobby Bonner, as the three most valuable players in their entire farm system. Those were three guys, longtime starters of the future. A guy named Drungo, who wants to make the big leagues, catching a fly ball hit by a guy named Dave, who wants to make the big leagues. One of them will make it, just for a bit. The other never will. But how could we, in Pawtucket, at almost midnight on Easter Sunday, know which is going to be which? The 11th inning ends. The game will end at some point, soon, probably, I hope. A young boy, mid-teens probably, begins to stammer up towards the press box. He is tired, drained, and wants no more part in this eyesore disguised as a baseball game. He lets himself into the press box and taps the scorekeeper on the shoulder. It's his father. He asks for the keys to the car so he can go lay down and try to fall asleep. He gets them, escapes to the parking lot, and within minutes, he's passed out, unaware to his surroundings. The 13th inning carries a message for everyone in the stadium. It's a friendly message, nice, but it almost feels like the night laughing at us. Across the scoreboard glares the words, "On behalf of the Pawtucket Red Sox, Happy Easter." Have we really sat here, since the game began at 8:30, for 3.5 hours on the cold metal bleachers of a minor league complex until the clock ticked into a new day? Might as well stay till it ends now. Actually, not everyone thinks that. Another exodus of people departs the stadium. We're probably down to a couple hundred remaining, but that father and son are still here, determined to fulfill their pact. That 19-year-old boy kisses his girlfriend goodbye as she heads home for the night, having seen enough. But he's still here. The umpire's nephew, fighting off the cold and tiredness, is still here. The players are still here. And of course, that young boy, the son of the scorekeeper, is still sleeping in the car. Oh yeah, and there's some baseball happening. Steve Luber, the man who negotiated with those kids for the wood all those hours ago, is sent in to pitch in the 15th inning. Not expecting to play tonight, he will end up dealing 8 innings of relief. There are rarely times where either team even really threatens to score. Players are tiring, their mental state is fading, swings are ugly, lazy, offering little hope of a break from the time loop we've found ourselves in. Both managers are realizing this, but not doing anything about it yet. Because there's still one bit of hope. The one single possibility remaining to stop this game that we have not yet discussed. It currently rests in the butt pocket of the game's chief umpire. If baseball can't end this naturally, there is a rule that can do it by force. The curfew. If somehow you are still playing baseball up to the magic time of 12:50 a.m., then the game will stop. Both teams' managers are more than familiar with the rules. They're leaning on the curfew at this point, waiting for it to come and end this misery. Have I mentioned it's really goddamn cold on this baseball field? So, before the start of the 16th, about 45 minutes past midnight, the managers come out to have a chat with the umpire crew. The managers expect this to be a quick, affirming conversation that this is the final inning we'll play tonight. They are mistaken. The umpires collectively tell them that there is no curfew. They pull out their pocket rulebooks and prove it. There's nothing. This is not true. The managers know this is not true. Are you really going to keep this goddamn game going? Do you see those guys out there? No one is scoring a run to end this. Yes. Yes, we are. One manager sprints back into the clubhouse and grabs his own general baseball bylaws and points directly to the 12:45 a.m. curfew clause. Sure as hell, it's there. The umpire does not care. He is later quoted as to have said, "Those bylaws don't mean shit to me." He is a loyalist to the game of the first degree, bound to it by nothing more than the words on the book in his back pocket. He cares not of human suffering, nor pleading for mercy. He will see to it that this baseball game follows the letter of the law that defines him. In the coming days, weeks, even years, the story would become more clear. But what happened to make this game continue could not logically be described. The managers were correct. There is a 12:50 curfew clause, but this rulebook is updated every single year. And as if the single paragraph of surrendering to the night was somehow miraculously erased from every 1981 edition, this year's rulebook did not contain a curfew. The umpire, the man who wants to ump in the big leagues, the man who is a loyalist to this game, does not miss the small details. He rereads the rulebook every year and spots any changes. He knew there was no curfew. He didn't know why they took it out, but he knew they did. Baseball higher-ups, commissioners, the people who literally print the rulebook, will never quite understand how this curfew was in every single book before and after 1981, but eluded the year of this cursed game, as if to make it possible. And so somehow, by the grace of a disappearing paragraph, we play on. The managers walk back to their dugouts in disgust and disbelief. They attempt to call the International League president, Harold Cooper, but he doesn't answer, likely because it's almost 1 a.m. on Easter morning. One of the umpires notices his colleague's hands are turning a shade of purple. He takes the gloves off his own hands and gives them over. His colleague thanks him. Jokingly, he says, "No problem. How about if this thing goes another 16 innings, you give him back." We fall forward into the 19th. More than 2 baseball games have been played. Anyone scoring anytime soon feels 1 in a million. Luis Aponte, remember him, the Venezuelan legend that pitched through the 10th inning? Well, seeing that he only threw 4 innings tonight, and how many pitchers they're going through, he thinks he might be needed in the next game, scheduled for, oh, that's fun, tomorrow. Without any more hopes of curfew, Luis asks his manager if he can go home early, in case he does have to pitch, and he allows him to. So another pitcher, Mike Smithson, who was just pulled out in the 18th, gives him a ride home. It's not a long drive, don't worry, we'll get right back to them. Rochester's Dave Huppert limps back onto the field. Unlike the rest of the players, he has an added extra weight of bulky, loud, rickety catcher's gear. He also has to squat a lot. The catcher position looks like probably the least fun to play tonight, but Huppert does notice that the Pawtucket side, caring about their guys' legs, took their starting catcher out a while ago. They've had 2 guys go for about 10 innings each, while Dave Huppert has been out here for all 20. Why is he out here? Rochester's manager is not a cruel, unreasonable man. If Huppert came to him and said, "Dude, I have caught 60 outs for over 4 hours. Take me out, coach," he would. He would understand. So why is Dave Huppert still there? Well, hope. I know it sounds silly. He knows it sounds silly, but he can't help it. What if next season the Orioles have 1 remaining spot and it's a deadlock between 2 minor leaguers? Who should we bring up? What if someone says, "Well, remember that one time last year, Huppert asked to come out of a game"? That's a quitter. Dave Huppert knows deep down that conversation won't ever happen. But he simply could not live with himself on the off chance that it does. It's the same reason Tom Eaton walked to first without hinting that he was in pain to start the game. Really, it's the same reason the umpire refuses to call the game. He doesn't want to be the minor league ump that ended a baseball game early in a tie. That's un-American. So, they're all going to do their best to avoid that. Because of silly little hope, Dave Huppert is going to swallow the pain in his knees and squat some more. Huppert will squat for all 32 innings tonight, and never once will he ask to come out of the game. Eventually, he would get that call up to the big leagues, and he would play. He's in the encyclopedia, even if he retired with just 1 career hit. He made it. He can say that forever. And maybe, just maybe, they pulled him up because he shocked everyone with his endurance tonight. Okay, perfect. Luis Aponte seems to be arriving at home. His teammate stops the car and lets him out, watching to make sure he gets in alright. Luis knocks on the door. His wife answers a few seconds later, in a rage, screaming at Luis in Spanish. It's probably 1:30 in the morning. She does not believe that he is just getting home from the game. She is convinced, no, she knows, that he was out at the bars with his buddies picking up on women. She will not let him inside. Luis sighs. The truth would be harder to explain than a lie. She shuts the door of his own house in his face. Dejected, he turns around and walks back to his teammate's car, who has seen the whole thing. Luis Aponte gets a ride back to the stadium to watch the rest of the game because he has nowhere else to go. You can try to leave. You can run away to your home and family. It does not matter. There is no escape. When Luis and his teammate/chauffeur arrive back at the stadium, they do note something kind of odd. There's a black car with his headlights on, sitting in the parking lot. Not a huge worry, but something to note for sure. Unbeknownst to the two Pawtucket players, in that black car lied the sleeping teenage son of the scorekeeper, who, in his deep slumber, has inadvertently rolled over and kicked the car's headlights on. He is still asleep, oblivious to the fact. Back to the fabled ground where we're still hitting a ball with a wood bat. How poetic is it that after 20 innings of squatting, it's Dave Huppert, the catcher, standing here at the plate. With a man on second, he's about to be the hero of this game. He hits a high fly ball, one that on any other night is a routine pop-up. But that ball, in midair, according to those present, danced around like a knuckle tonight. It weaved and ducked and pirouetted and dropped in the outfield grass. And it danced long enough to give that man on second base time to run and touch home plate. In the top of the 21st inning, the equivalent of the third inning of the third consecutive baseball game, Rochester takes a 2-1 lead. That singular run looms on the scoreboard as if it was 20. A while ago, I think around the 12th inning, I said that in the back of both teams' minds, whether they were to win or lose, they wanted this game to just be over. They just might not be ready to admit it yet. Well now, past 1 a.m. on Easter morning, both teams are fully willing to admit it. They could give a rat's ass about who wins this game. They want to go home. So as the top half of the inning winds down, and we're just 3 outs away from freedom, hope has returned for the first time since the curfew conversation. The night has loosened its grasp. The few who remain feel the possibility to wriggle out of this time loop. There are likely now less than 100 people in the stadium who are not being paid to be there. The collective hope brings a sense of joy over all of them. Accomplishment. We did it. Stuck it out in Pawtucket through a stupidly long baseball game and reached the end. The night giggles under its breath. Dave Koza is the coolest guy in the world, if you ask that young boy in the stands with his father, who's still here and doesn't plan on leaving, though he is starting to show some signs of extreme cold and tiredness. His father tells him the painfully crisp bursts of chill are nothing more than dedication shining through his body. A doctor may prefer to describe it as frostbite. But Dave Koza's in the batter's box, so forget about your body temperature. Watch him. With his wife and his young superfan in the stands, he can't end this thing right now. They're down 1 with no one on base. But he can keep it going. Koza launches a leadoff double in the bottom of the 21st. I truly believe that no hit from the home team in the history of the sport has brought so much tension into their own stadium. In this moment, for at least a split second, everyone here was the same. There were no fans or players who want to make the big leagues or umpires who want to make the big leagues. There was just a couple hundred humans sitting in McCoy Stadium, watching a baseball game, wanting to go home. A man steps up to the plate, a man we haven't talked about yet. And maybe my favorite part of the entire baseball game happened next. A pitcher, 2 full teams, in an almost desolate stadium, were rooting against this one man. They were praying with everything in themselves that he would get out, that he wouldn't use this opportunity to try and get pulled up to Boston, that he wasn't a good hitter. They were all rooting against Wade fucking Boggs. Yeah, we haven't talked about Wade yet. 21 unmentioned innings, but you may have heard of him on your own time. Over 18 years in the big leagues, the man would step up to the plate just over 9,000 times, and he would hit the coveted 3,000 hit marker while compiling a 328 career batting average, which is top 50 all time. He hasn't played a single MLB game yet, but he will, and he will become one of the greatest hitters ever, with some of the greatest sports TV cameos ever, and allegedly be a part of some of the greatest drinking stories ever. But none of that is right now. Right now, he's in freezing cold Pawtucket, where only a handful of Red Sox diehards know his name. And right now, just as he would do so many times in the coming 2 decades, he's teaching a master class in hitting the baseball, pounding an oppo field double into deep left. Dave Koza trots effortlessly for the game-tying run. Wade Boggs, who will one day be known as the Chicken Man, jogs to second base for a stand-up RBI double. He nervously glances towards his own dugout, fully aware of the dichotomy of his game-tying RBI. His team collectively gazes back, emotionless. This game is not over. It's probably 2 in the goddamn morning, and we're all tied up again. Great job, Wade. The inning trickles out. The 22nd dawns. Dallas Williams, more than halfway through his 0 for 13 night, is up to bat. He has given up the swing. It has served him poorly and shows little hope. He will trust that instead of moving bat to ball, he has a better chance of waiting for the ball. In other words, he bunts. The ball bounces, and we can't know for sure what happened, but it redirects up and hits Dallas Williams himself. The umpire calls it foul. Pawtucket's manager, Joe Morgan, disagrees wholeheartedly. In the 22nd inning, he storms out of the field, producing decibel levels that trump anything the crowd has all night. A notorious scene maker, he's jumping and kicking and screaming and can't believe that batter wasn't called out. After he doesn't stop, Joe Morgan is ejected from the baseball game. Bob, up in the announcer's booth, lets us know that Joe will be taking an early shower tonight. He then spends about 15 seconds openly fantasizing about a warm shower. He and his partner question if there's anything they could do to get ejected. Unable to think of an idea, they grudgingly go back to announcing. The fans, the 50 or so now remaining, are shocked. They can't be brought to show too much emotion even at the most exciting part of the night so far, but they're shocked. Give them some slack. And Joe Morgan, the errant manager, the ejectee, is not going anywhere. He's been here for almost 6 hours. He'll be damned if he doesn't see a winner. The umpire threatens that if Joe doesn't go, he will call the police to remove him. Joe Morgan, without hesitating, claps back, "Where the hell are you gonna get a cop at this hour?" He finally leaves the field. Once ejected, a manager is no longer allowed to sit in the clubhouse and enjoy the ballgame. That's alright, Morgan is the home team manager. This is his stomping ground. He's been thrown out of it before. You think he doesn't have a plan? There's a little spot he knows of, under the bleachers behind the backstop. It kinda looks like an unfinished construction and storage zone, but you push aside some wooden pallets and peel back this piece of infield wall, voila, there it is, we got baseball. Joe Morgan would stay down here in his secret perch for the rest of the game. He was probably the closest person in the world to watching the game on television. But his television was a people that he could not make a sound near, or that umpire who ejected him, standing some 15 feet ahead, might hear him. The night continues to age. Baseball is played some more. Dozens shiver, some sleep, some talk. Joe Morgan watches. It's around this time that another call is placed, once again to the home of Harold Cooper. This time, we get an answer. "Yes, hello, please, is someone there?" "Hi, this is Mrs. Cooper?" "Mrs. Cooper, hello, I apologize for the late call. Look, if there is any way I can talk to your husband Harold, we have a minor league baseball situation here. We're still playing, and it's like the 20-something inning. We just need help. So much help." "Okay, well, Harold's not home right now, but I'll give him the message when he gets in. Thanks. Good night." Well, at least we got a message through. Wait, hold on a minute. What? It is like somewhere around 2 a.m., the middle of the night on the morning of Easter Sunday. Harold Cooper isn't home right now? Where the hell is he? And his wife is just up to answer the phone? This seems weird, right? I guess all we can do is hope they call back? That boy in the stands, the one sitting with his father, fulfilling their pact, is now chattering his teeth together. He's gripping cups of his father's coffee to at least have a memory of what warmth was like. His father is having a great time. The couple dozen fans still here cannot even be described as the extreme loyalists anymore. This is a family who has stumbled backwards into this opportunity where they're all still here for some reason and now accidentally have a chance at witnessing history. They've almost all huddled together in one section of the stands, an idea probably brought on by the thought that if we all stuffed together we might get a little warmer. That's except one guy, who just prefers to watch the game on his own, looking like a dot in the empty concrete. They're socializing, creating relationships, some of which, kindled on this night, will last a lifetime. That boy's father is laughing and joking with some of the others, really just taking in the absurdity of the situation. But that boy is hearing the bell. He sees the light. Not literally, sunrise is still a couple hours out, but his motivation has faded. He could care less about he and his father's pact to stay till the end. He's ready to tap out. He's ready to go home. Dad, I'm cold and tired. Can we leave? His father was a good man. He had vices, couldn't keep his weight down or the cigarettes out of his mouth, but he would do anything for his boy. He loved him unconditionally. But on this night, in Pawtucket, he looked his shivering son dead in the eyes and said no. We're staying. Around the 24th inning, a new competitor enters the battleground. Not since Luis Aponte had the drive of Shane back to the stadium from his own home have we seen people willingly show up here. And Luis wasn't even really willingly. But now, everyone holds their breath. A woman gets out of the car with a force stronger than most can imagine. A mother who wants her children. The mom of the Bat Boys shows up in person, as if she truly did have to see it with her own eyes to believe it. And she still doesn't care. She wants her boys to come home. Now, they're done with this timeless disaster of a sporting event. Pawtucket coaches try their best to stall her, explaining the importance of the Bat Boys. The game can't go on without them, ma'am. Both Bat Boys do their best to pretend they don't hear or see their mother, despite her clearly being the most captivating thing in the ballpark right now. Yes, they are still playing baseball. The game manages to keep its two young bat chauffeurs, holding as much order as it can. Their mother drives back home. At least she knows they're safe. I'm gonna read a few direct quotes from Bob at around this time. They paint an accurate picture of what the setting has evolved into. Chico Walker steps in, and I've lost count. That's about his 12th trip to the plate. In order to actually find out, I have to flip through 3 score sheets. But if you're listening out there, we'd like to know how many people we still have with us, so why don't you give Howie a call at WPXN 325-5300. Even Bob, a veteran of the game, as most great announcers are, has fallen victim to fatigue. He read the numbers wrong, giving the maximum 100 listeners the incorrect digits to dial. But while we're up here in the press box, let's stay, because it's starting to get more fun in here than anything on the field. The scoreboard operator is in a battle to make the sign display the score while still rolling over to a completely new game. The scorekeeper continues to endlessly jot away, marking each pitch of the night. The PA announcer reads off a notice to the stadium that someone's car's headlights are on in the parking lot. We're just looking out for you guys, don't want to drain your juice. Can you imagine the reaction up here in the press box when that PA announcer started reading the make and model and license plate? It's a black Ford Pinto, license plate RC977. Hold on, the scorekeeper says. That's my car. Oh god, my son, he's out there sleeping. He kicked the damn lights on. Bob cackles over the air. But this game of baseball, endless into the void, will not pause. The scorekeeper, a crucial job, cannot take a break. Especially now, he's well aware he may be recording history. A single missed pitch means he provides an incomplete account. He has no choice but to stay up here, with the knowledge that his car battery is slowly draining away, while his son sleeps helplessly inside of it. Luis Aponte decided to try again. He was rejected from his own home by his wife a couple hours ago, but At some point, he will have to return, right? The teammate who gave him a ride down there originally is now far beyond incapacitated. He actually might be currently face down, passed out in the clubhouse, but that fact will never be fully confirmed, conflicting accounts. So, all Luis can do now is walk home, and hope he doesn't have to walk back. His wife has to believe him, right? Back on the field, where, did you know, there has been a baseball game going on? Jim Umbarger would enter the game for Rochester in the 22nd. He would proceed to pitch 10 absolute relief heaters, giving up 4 hits and no runs through more than a complete game. His competition may be half-awake baseball zombies of tomorrow's stars, but his stats count the same. A great night at work. Through the night, some panicked phone calls have reached the stadium line. Players' families were calling, making sure they were safe. The umpire, who, remember, brought his poor little nephew to this thing, had his sister-in-law and brother frantically wondering where they were. One Pawtucket staff member grew so sick of the constant calls, which he always picked up, hoping to hear from Harold Cooper, that he developed a rehearsed response. Yes, they are still playing baseball. Yes, everyone is safe and okay. They'll be home when this ends. If this ends. Now is the time where curiosity takes hold. The 26th inning ends with, wait for it, no runs scored. Over the PA, the fans are informed that this baseball game has now surpassed the record of the longest in the sport's minor or major league history. What everyone was sort of thinking in the back of their minds is now confirmed. They are a part of history. On this field, in a state without an MLB team, with no TV cameras or ecstatic fanfare in sight, something happened. The 41 players who took part, the probably 30-something fans in the stadium, the press box, they're witnesses. It's fascinating how, if this game ends in the 25th, we don't talk about it. Like, we never hear about it. We might never hear the stories of Dave Koza, or Dallas Williams, or Cal Ripken Jr., or Danny Parks. Who knows? We don't know any of the intricacies surrounding the game, the chaotic aura slowly engulfing the night. But this game did go past 26, and it kept going, so we do know. We know that after the announcement was made, that 19-year-old kid whose girlfriend left him hours ago stood up. He walked towards the exit doors. He stopped at a trash can, bent over, and stuck his head in. He searched around and popped back out. He walked about 25 feet down the corridor and repeated the same course of actions. The kid was thinking ahead. By the time he went home, he had collected 14 different ticket stubs, thrown away in the trash, that were now forever fragments of baseball lore. After the 27th inning, Bob treats us to an out-loud, on-air counting of how many fans are in the stadium, giving us our first concrete number in a while. He lands at 28 total. Joe Morgan is technically a spectator now, though an illegal one, but I don't think Bob knew that. It's also unclear if he was counting the sleeping child in the car, whom he was aware of by now. That team meal that the manager Hood prepared all those hours ago, set to be hot after the 9th inning, has turned to mush. But those beers, whew, great call, Hood, great call. Up in the booth, Bob admits a mistake of his. We've gotten 25 calls back here, and that's pretty impressive, he says, considering I gave you guys the wrong phone number. It's 5330, not 5300. Make sure you let us know you're following along, and we'll send you some free tickets just for being with us tonight. The game is less of a pitcher's duel and more so the 6th or 7th battle of an offenseless war. In like the 28th, circa 3 a.m., Jim Umbarger, still dealing his 10 innings of destruction, feels the wind pick up. He shouts over at his third baseman, Cal Ripken, to watch for the bunt. A man who doesn't like taking fielding advice for his own position from the pitcher, Ripken shouts back aggressively, "I've been watching for the bunt for 23 innings, Jim." The phone continues to ring with worried family members. At one point, Joe Morgan's wife calls. She wants to speak to her husband. "Sorry, ma'am. No can do. He got ejected. I think he's in, the clubhouse." Mrs. Morgan, convinced that the team is playing an elaborate ruse on her, and her husband is indeed out drinking to celebrate a win, questions further. Then why isn't Joe answering his phone? Unable to come up with a good answer, someone decides to go find Joe Morgan. "Hey man, your wife's on the phone. She's pissed. I'd go talk." After being summoned from his perch to the telephone, he does his best to convince her that they are in fact still playing baseball at 3 in the morning. Come see for yourself, though God, I wouldn't recommend that. She asks why he's not answering his phone, halfway through explaining that he was ejected a full baseball game ago after managing 2 full baseball games and is now secretly watching through a peephole mere feet behind the umpire who ejected him. Joe Morgan stops. He realizes this is not going to be an explanation his wife accepts. This is a battle he cannot win. He will fight it later. He retreats to his hole. It's late. I like to think of the game detached from our timeline, and it was kind of floating through this still infinite moment that happened to be in Pawtucket on Easter. But the rest of the world did still spin. The city mostly slept, while some insomniacs, night workers, drug doers were awake. A few walked by McCoy Stadium late tonight and wondered what the hell was happening. One man, who just happened to have a rough time falling asleep, had so much energy that he left his house and took his dog for a walk at like 2 in the morning. A little weird, but curious by light like a moth, he fluttered toward the park. And the last thing he actually expected to see was people using it how it's supposed to be used. And he's the weird one, for walking his dog at 2 a.m. By now, there's also a couple cops straddled along the grounds, pretending to be working while enjoying a minute of baseball. At least 4 911 calls were made about a late night disturbance at McCoy. They weren't wrong. What's going on here is disturbing. They haven't been here all night, though. Despite this baseball game, there's still bad and good in the world. Tonight, in law enforcement, there was a fire on Woodbine Street, about a mile and a half uptown. A woman was robbed and knocked to the ground outside Douglas Drug Store, a crime that netted the bad guys all $40 she was carrying. And someone had 5 bunnies stolen from cages in their backyard. Merry Easter. Sometime after 3 a.m., a doctor was seen, sort of pacing, sort of strolling. Long night, but now he was more confused than anything. He walks all the way into the wide open stadium, not a semblance of security or anyone to stop you. This game belongs to the night now. It belongs to Pawtucket. The city can come and go as it pleases. But the doctor is kinda lost. As he's making his way through weirdly stacked and maneuvered pallets, he sees someone. By God, he's stumbled across Joe Morgan. The men establish eye contact, each knowing the other shouldn't be here, yet each with as good a reason. I just delivered a baby. Got off my night shift. I was just walking around, shocked to see the stadium still powered up. I'm sorry. Yeah, Morgan eases up. I suppose the doctor's reason for being here was a little more noble. For the next 15 minutes or so, after he explains his odd situation, the 2 men, a child-delivering doctor and an ejected baseball manager, take turns peeping through Joe Morgan's signature hole in the backstop wall, where they can see it all. 4 o'clock creeps towards. The stadium light, about to become obsolete to a much brighter force, burns in continuity. 30 innings of baseball have been played over almost 8 hours. Can you believe Dave Huppert is still behind the plate? Right now he whispers to the umpire, as the two have been casually conversating for about 15 innings. Dave yanks the umpire's chain. Hey man, you want to go home? You're tired? You can end this thing. You have that power. 16 straight balls, Blue. That's all you gotta call, and we're out of here. Just know, you're choosing to stay. Dallas Williams in the outfield was heard through the night literally just chanting the F word to himself under his breath, and sometimes he would accidentally start saying it louder. I have no idea what to make of this information. Those sports writers in the booth long ago watched their latest possible final official deadline pass with no result to report. But they're still here. They're all still here. Why? Why is anyone still willingly here? Why are there still some fans in the stands? I think the author, Dan Barrett, explains that best. These lesser moments in our daily struggle will continue tomorrow and the next day and the next, he says. For now, though, the few remaining fans bear witness to a radical break from the mundane. They see figures that seem charged by the stadium light with a vital radiance, running in pursuit of something represented by a small white ball, running in pursuit of hope. The 32nd inning begins. The scene that opened this video takes place. Wade Boggs, the future Hall of Famer, current nobody, gently lies his head down on third base. The first base umpire disappears into the dugout, but there's nowhere near enough order to stop play. They just keep going. He was only gone for a minute or two, maybe 5 or 6 pitches thrown, and then he walks back out to his spot right beside first base. He doesn't stop the game. He just looks around at his crew and calmly gives them a throat-slashing gesture. No more words need to be spoken. The announcers seem confused on the air. They outwardly express they don't know what just happened, but it probably doesn't matter. That's a very fair assumption to make. But in actuality, this is the first thing in recent memory that did matter. Neither team, if you can believe this, scored in the 32nd inning, after which the game would be officially postponed, and everyone, finally, went home. Here's what happened. Harold Cooper was something of a baseball celebrity. It got to the point where he was basically the sport's living, talking encyclopedia. He would get friendly calls, especially in the wee hours of the night, from people asking him rudimentary baseball questions. For a while, he answered politely, usually off the top of his head, but eventually the calls got a little annoying, so he would have his wife answer the phone. The routine answer she would give was that Harold was not home. No matter how weird that answer sounded in the middle of the night, it usually worked. And it had definitely sounded pretty weird in the wee hours of Easter, but it worked. The thing is, a bit later, Harold's wife told him about the call. I can't tell you why they were awake so late, but they were. And when she did, he didn't believe her. They were still playing baseball after 2 a.m.? No. Honey, you must have misheard. Let me give him a call back. When the stadium picked up, after 4 a.m., Harold Cooper listened to the other end of the phone in absolute horror. "Get off of that field," he told the umpires, "as soon as the next inning ends." The voice of Harold Cooper was the hand of God, reaching down, finally, to bestow mercy on this forgotten travesty that began as a sport. A total of 18 fans remained when it was officially called. Dave and Ankoza go home, to their little suburban place in Pawtucket, where they fall asleep and wake up. Dave ready to continue chasing his major league dreams, and Ann continuing to support him. Dave wouldn't ever make it, and the newlyweds' marriage wouldn't last. But how could we know that right now, tonight, or I guess this morning, as we drive home, delirious from the longest baseball game ever? That umpire, who wants to make the big leagues, has just achieved one of the most statistically impressive performances ever. He did not use the bathroom once during this game. He'll grab his poor nephew from the stands. The kid is still awake, staying up all 32 innings. They'll drive home to sleep in a new home for the first time and ease the worries of an uneasy household. The umpire never did make the big leagues, and his nephew, emotionally scarred, would never attend another baseball game again. Bob signs off the air and heads home to a wife who missed him. The scorekeeper walks out to his son sleeping in his car and the battery entirely drained dead. He calls a tow truck and waits. The Boston Red Sox, the major league team, would make the World Series 5 years later in 1986. Many members of the Pawtucket team would be contributing factors in that pennant run. That Baltimore Orioles infield of the future, Ripken, Bonner, and Hayeswood, wouldn't quite materialize. Bonner and Hayeswood would have a combined career 113 at-bats, both out of the majors permanently within 3 years. Cal Ripken Jr., however, would have a little bit of a better career, being one of 2 people from tonight to make the Hall of Fame alongside Wade Boggs. He famously possesses the monstrous record of most consecutive MLB games played ever, and not so famously, he played in the longest one too. Joe Morgan, who one day would become manager of the Boston Red Sox for a few years, will drive home, give his word to his wife, grab a shower, and then go to 7 a.m. Mass with her. From church, another Pawtucket coach picks him up and takes him right on back to McCoy Stadium, where they have another game coming up in just a few hours. So is the way. The next day's starting pitcher arrives early to warm up. He finds the place nearly empty but destroyed and uncleaned. There's a note scribbled that someone stuck to his locker. "You're on your own," it reads.